All right. Hello, friends and beautiful souls. Welcome to episode 97 of Faith, Fitness, Joy. Today's topic is You Can't Pour from an Empty Cup, the importance of prioritizing your well being. And I am thrilled to welcome our special guest today, Miranda Rae from Here Comes the Sunshine. And she specializes in emotional awareness and empowerment. And so today's topic, I think, is something that resonates for many of us moms and women, just really learning to the importance of really filling our own cup so that we are better able to help all of those who rely on us, be it our children, our spouses, or in our careers and our day-to-day lives. And so, Miranda, you and I,
Hello.
hello and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here. So we've been talking a fair amount in our conversations recently around this whole topic of the importance of really, filling up your own cup and how it can be challenging as moms and women to kind of put that boundary up and really prioritize putting our well-being first. For some reason, it can just feel like really difficult to do that. And I know a lot of women also will often experience feelings of guilt or shame about it, like
Mm.
somehow it's being selfish to do that. And so that's what we're kind of honing in on today. And before we kind of dive into more about what that looks like, I think it would be helpful for the listeners to just kind of get clear about what are we talking about when we say like pouring from an empty cup or filling up your own cup before you kind of give to others. So can you share a little bit about what that means to you? What does it mean to you to fill your own cup and to have your cup being full?
Sure. It's about having balance. It's about being full of love and compassion and excitement and having all of these things going in our lives that we're at peace with, that we're comfortable with. And it's not only about feeling that way, it's about having it for yourself as well as for other people. Right? You want to make sure that you're not just perpetually giving to others, that you're not perpetually making other people happy or providing for other people, because that's just pulling. Now, if you have a full cup and you're giving, then that's an amazing thing because it's a replenishment. It comes and goes, it goes back and forth. But when you're just constantly depleting yourself and you're running on empty, and then you get a little bit and then you're automatically giving it out, not only are you unhappy, but then you become short, then you become burned out, then you become stressed. And it's not just about what you're giving out, but it's the quality, it's how you're giving it. So, of course, for example, we love our kids. If you have children, your spouse, whoever in your family, you love them, you want to tell them that, you want to share that with them. But if you are short or you don't have enough to give or you're not feeling open and peaceful, they're going to feel that. They're going to pick up on that. And so it's important that you're not just giving, but you're giving in the right way, that you're giving freely and openly, and not just, the bare minimum.
Mm. Yeah, that's I think it's a really great way of really helping to clarify it because I think that's what a lot of us tend to do. Where a lot of times we are sort of pouring from an empty cup because we're giving and giving and doing and not necessarily taking enough time for our own well-being, and then we get depleted, and then we find ourselves, experiencing a lot of what you're talking about, where you might be short or tired or all of these things, and then you're not giving your best. So it's actually as as much as I think a lot of us struggle with this feeling that it's somehow selfish to
Mm-mm.
take care of yourself first, it's actually more selfless. It's actually more of a generous type of a thing because you're able to give more and be better um, by doing that.
Definitely.
So, since it's, we do recognize that a lot of us struggle to do this, how have you struggled with this? Like, how did you, I would imagine there was a point where you were not necessarily, filling your own cup first and then kind of got to a point of realizing that you needed to look at that and what to do
Yeah.
about it. So can you share a little bit about kind of how you've struggled with this in your own life?
For sure. I think when you have a lot of pain, when you have a lot of trauma, a lot of emotion, and you don't have to have had, but if you have things building up that have happened and you either consciously or subconsciously have not dealt with them, you haven't processed them, you haven't made peace with them, and they're kind of just swimming around in your body, right? And so you're not able, or I wasn't able to just be honest with myself. I wasn't at peace. I was constantly trying, that fight, flight, or freeze. I was constantly in that state. My nervous system was constantly overloaded on my own. And then you add other human beings into the mix that you need to help support your lifeline for these human beings, and you're not there yourself. And they pick up on the biggest thing for me was that they pick up on that energetically. So you can say whatever you want. You can say, I love you. And you can say, you're so important to me. But if they don't feel that, then they're going to take on all that emotional energy too, if that makes sense. It's not, I always say it's not what, it's how. But I say that over and over again, but it's really, really true. If you are not clued in to them, if they don't feel that, and this goes for any human being, but especially as moms when it comes to your children, if they don't feel that from you, there's going to be other things that come into play. It's not just going to be about this conversation. It's not just going to be about what they're trying to get from you. All these other things are going to come into play. And you don't want that to happen. You want to be present. You want to be in the moment. And that's difficult to do if your brain is somewhere else.
Yes, absolutely. And I love, that you touched on like how they pick that up, because I think, and I know I've been guilty of this too, a lot of times we're trying to do what we think we can do. And sometimes that is, the minimal of just making sure you're saying, I love you, or you're trying to give what you can from what little you have left from being so depleted. And we often maybe kid ourselves that might be enough, and not recognizing that our children are far more perceptive and smarter than we often think, and they pick up on that. So with that in mind, kind of, really looking at what you were struggling with and starting to recognize some of this, what would you say was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, in terms of like a turning point for you where you realized, I need to figure this out. I need to really like put this line in the sand, so to speak, and make sure that I'm filling my own cup and I'm prioritizing my own health and my own well-being. What was there a moment like that, or something in particular?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that was...
No, there was a few moments that when I sit back and think about it, there was a few, but I think realizing that I had become angry, and I am not by nature an anger. I'm goofy and fun and lighthearted. And I knew I was stressed. I knew I was worried. I knew I was overwhelmed. All of that made sense. But it crossed the line of like, hey, this is just busy stuff, into like, I am not happy at all. And now I'm becoming angry, and now I'm becoming resentful. And there was a lot of stuff going on in my marriage too, and that wasn't helping at all. But realizing I was trying my hardest and staying in that position because I thought it's what was best for my kids. And then I realized it was becoming quite the opposite, and that I was giving them all of that energetic emotion, and I was teaching them not to deal with their emotions or not to handle things the right way. And I was passing down everything I was feeling, the anxiety and the uncertainty. And I just didn't want them to feel that way. And I think a lot of times we do this thing where we go, well, self-care, right? Take a bubble bath or go get a massage or whatever. We do all those things and they feel good in the moment and they're important. But that's not real true self-care. Self-care is like, can I sit? Can I sit in silence? Because I don't know about you, but for me as a mom, I was constantly in go, 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 go mode. And then I fell asleep if I could, because you just want to stay busy. You want to keep your mind busy so you don't have to feel the things that you don't want to feel. You live in this comfortably uncomfortable world where you're just like, I'll just stay here because it's what I know. I'm not really happy, but I'm just gonna stay here because it's what I know. And so for me, it was taking myself out of the situation. I actually went on a trip to see my best friend in New York, And I had to physically give myself distance from my children, from my family, to put myself in a different environment, to actually sit with myself and think for a moment. And that's when I really like that. That's when I had that kind of aha moment. Like, you, your kids deserve so much better than this. You deserve so much better than this. And how are you going to get a handle on that? So that was really the first aha moment, I like to call it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's powerful. And I think I think a lot of times it goes maybe unnoticed. A lot of people may not always have that self-awareness to kind of catch that and recognize that there's something more I need to do and really take a serious look at this to really change and shift. Because a lot of times I think we get focused on what feels hard, like the stress and the day-to-day life and trying to juggle all that. And so then we find other ways, like you were saying, to try to like check out from that, whatever that looks like. But we kind of don't always see the ripple effect of doing that.
Mhm.
Which, can also have these bigger impacts, again, like things that are going to affect our kids in the longer term. Um,
And I think often, if I can add on to that, is we get so concerned about our children, rightly so, we're their moms, but I spent so much time reading parenting books and how do I help them with this and how do I fix that and how do I get them to listen to me? And you get so consumed with that. You don't really realize if you start doing some work on your own, that will produce more of the reaction you want from them. That will help them deal with their emotions, help them have space and freedom. But if you don't feel that on your own, they're certainly not going to feel it. So while all that information is good, the more that you distract yourself by trying to learn about why my husband does this or why my kids do this or whatever, really looking at yourself first.
yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, because that's the other thing I think, that I am continuously, I guess, humbled or surprised by at times is the things that your kids do notice and pick up on.
Mm-hmm.
And they notice the changes, good or bad. They notice when you stop doing certain things, they notice when things shift and change. So they're always watching. Um, so I mean, it's great that you had that awareness and like recognizing that and taking the steps to do something about it. And so I think kind of to get at what I think a lot of us struggle with is like, how do you go from, okay, I know this isn't working. I know I need to do something differently. And I know I need to kind of, for lack of better terms, maybe improve myself or focus on my own well-being so that I can be like a better version of me for my family. So what did that look like for you? Like, how did you start to do that? What kinds of things did you start to implement, I guess, to kind of get there?
Sure. I really knew deep down I had to do a lot of emotional work, but I was not prepared and I was not ready. You can only handle what you're ready for. And if you have, 200 pounds to lose, you don't look at the end result of the 200 pounds. You can't. It's too much and it's too distracting. You have to look at where you can start and where you can take little steps. And it's the same thing with your um, overcoming what you've been through, especially if you have a lot of trauma in your past, like I did, or you have been through a lot of hard situations. Really starting to have patience and grace for yourself, really starting to understand that it doesn't matter what you went through. It's, as Dr. Gabor Mate talks about all the time, it's what it happened to your body, what it did to your body, right? So I spent a lot of time justifying what I had been through because it wasn't so bad. It could, other people have it worse. So you just need to suck it up and deal with it.
Mm,
And not realizing that I was really, really affected by all the things that I had been through. But I couldn't come to terms with it yet. So to answer your question, I went the physical route first. I started really listening to a lot of things like this, a lot of podcasts, a lot of YouTube videos, things that I could relate to, but I wasn't ready to move in that direction. So I did look at my physical health because years of suppressing and years of nervous system overload had led to hormonal issues, thyroid issues. I had Hashimoto's and adrenal fatigue and all of these things. So getting a diagnosis helped me. I know it doesn't define you, but it helped me kind of make sense, start to become a detective of like, where did things go wrong? How did I get here?
Mm.
And, all of those things are really brought on by stress, by emotions. You start to understand autoimmune and why your body doesn't work the right way, why you feel like crap. And I really tried to work backwards and say, okay, I think I knew subconsciously what the real stuff was, but I wasn't ready for it yet. I needed to go progress. So I started there and I started making habits physically that helped, changes in my food and supplements. And then I felt a little bit better. And then I had a little more motivation to dig a little bit deeper. And it's truly just like an onion where you just peel layer by layer and you get a little bit more clarity and you get a little bit more understanding for yourself, start to accept things a little bit more, you start to love yourself a little bit more, and then you're ready for the next layer and you're ready for the next layer. But it truly is, one thing at a time.
Yeah. I think, I just wish more folks would emphasize that more with regard to like any type of endeavor where you're making changes. I know this has been my experience too, where it's like this kind of like tendency to try to go build Rome in a day. And like you were saying at the beginning, it's like if you have 200 pounds to lose, like if you're looking at it that way and you're trying to put like this crazy time frame on it, and you're like, I know for me it was insanity, like okay, I'm going to do all the things at once. I'm going to change my diet, I'm going to exercise, I'm going to stop drinking, I'm all, and it was too much to try to do at one time. It didn't, I didn't build all those habits overnight, and it wasn't going to change overnight. So it's like the incremental change is so key to this, to keep you out of overwhelm. But also, like you said, it's like there's this, the onion analogy, right? It's like you have to kind of work through it layer by layer, so your body, your mind, your spirit kind of have time to really catch up and process with all of that kind of work you're doing at each of those layers. So
And you want to honor that process, right? You want to take the time. I use this movie theater analogy where, when you've played the same movie over and over again, whether that's an experience or whether that's a physical thing you do or a relationship with someone, when you've played the same movie over and over again, at some point you decide you're done. And, when you go to walk out of the theater, everyone doesn't leave at one time. They leave one at a time. And there's a trash can outside the door. And there's always usually there's always an attendee there to say, thank you so much. I hope, thanks for coming. I hope you enjoyed it. And I think of it, everything that I'm ready to give up or ready to not allow to identify me anymore. I think about walking out of that door and there's a trash can there and you drop everything that you don't want to carry from that experience, the guilt, the regret, the shame, whatever from that you don't want, you leave it. And then you thank it, you acknowledge it for whatever it did, what it brought you, the lesson that it was. And then you take the good and you leave the movie theater. And sometimes we end up in that same movie again. We go through the same process. But it's important that you honor all of that and you love it and appreciate it and not just like, oh, I don't want to be that person anymore and try to ignore it or like it never really happened. You have to acknowledge what you've been through so that you can make room for what it is that you want.
yeah, I love that. That's a great analogy. It's a good way to work through kind of releasing and letting stuff go too, because you can kind of visualize it that way, and also the peace with it. I think, like you said,
Peace.
it's important to have appreciation and gratitude for your past versions. I forget where I heard it, but somebody was talking about this, and it's like those versions of you got you to wherever you are today. And
Yeah.
even though it may be something you're growing out of, it's still, got you here. And it was always you trying to do your best. So I think just a lot of times we don't think to maybe take a second to acknowledge that version of us and be thankful for it and what it taught us. And now it's just time to move into a new phase or chapter.
Well, that's a good point because every version of you deserves to be loved. So especially if you're holding on to something from your childhood, you really have to. And I know you and I have had this discussion before. I think, but you have to go back to that girl or that person at whatever age and really love them. You can't just like love yourself today and like, oh, so glad I'm not that person anymore. That person is in there needing the love and support and understanding that you give your children or anybody else that you love in your life. It's so important that you go back there and bring them with you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's a very important, I think, takeaway for people. Um, so I mean, obviously we could probably talk about this for hours and hours because there's so much around this topic, but I know you and I have talked a little bit about some of what you're doing and how you're starting to kind of create some things around this for helping other people with all aspects of health, but also kind of with this lens. And so is there anything you'd like to share with the audience around kind of what's on the horizon and what you are creating and working on?
Sure. Yeah. So I've been on this I call it my healing journey for about 7 years. And in the last year, I've really started working with people. Teaching is my nature, it's my trade, and I've always kind of had that on my heart to help people. And so I love being able to connect with specifically women, because one of the biggest things for me when I started was hearing people like you who are out there talking to people like me and going, oh my God, she gets it. Oh my God, that's exactly how I feel. And you just automatically feel a sense of relief. And I
Mhm.
like providing that for people, and I like providing perspective. And I do have a lot of experience and I've been through a lot of things. So it's that's a huge step just to hear someone else has been through that what you've been through and they made it through. But the other thing that I wanted to start focusing on was, we spend so much time talking about healing and overcoming. But I think sometimes we get lost in that and we're in the middle. We know we don't want this, but we're not quite sure what this is. And so I think it's just as important to figure out what we want, to become conscious creators of our own life, to decide how we want life to be after we've decided how we don't want life to be.
Mm.
And so I wanted to present that other side as much as possible. So the first thing I did was I developed a brand called Here Comes the Sunshine, because I wanted to focus more on that. I love being outside. I love sitting in the sun. It's my personal thing. It's what charges my battery. So I wanted to incorporate that idea. So I have Here Comes the Sunshine as a Instagram page and as a website, and I just started there. A lot of times you have no idea what you're doing. You show up, and as I'm sure you did when you started this podcast, you just go and see what will happen. So I started out just doing motivational quotes, and then I have a dear friend, Vanessa, who owns Say Anything Designs, and she is making t-shirts and bags and hats and just all things positive. I have a line there. But then I came up with this idea for a workshop that I've been running here locally, at this beautiful coffee shop where they have a community space. And it's called Emotionally Empowered. So my goal is to have that online, but right now I've been doing it in person because I like that connection.
Mhm.
And it's not just emotional awareness. It's not just knowing your emotions. It's not just identifying it. It's really the whole process of I not only am aware and I acknowledge, but I understand it. I can identify it. I can love and accept it. And I can process it and express it. And I can release and clear it. And then I can create what I want next. So I really kind of walk people through, whether it's real specific or it's a 1 hour and we just kind of touch on everything. I'm enjoying like just walking people through that and seeing people go, oh, never thought of that. Or, we, like I said before, we get so caught up on what we're healing from that we don't think about what we want. So really, I'm trying to focus on that right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's so true. I do. I think we get focused on what we don't want, not so much on what we do. So to really shift the focus to that is great. So it sounds like you have a lot of exciting things in the works. So it sounds like if people online that maybe aren't in the same um, town can find you from looking for Here Comes the Sunshine on all
Yep,
of the.
I'm at Here Comes the Sunshine underscore. So if there's to be a bright yellow picture, you'll find me there.
Okay, awesome. And then we'll also make sure to include the links to those in the episode description, and then also on just any of the comments or anything under the when we post everything. So you'll be able to get links to those there as well.
Sounds
Um,
good.
so, well, Gosh, it's been so great to have you on, Miranda, and to talk about all of this. I think it's just such a important topic and something that I think so many women and moms really just need that kind of like you said, other people that are going through it, recognizing that a lot of us struggle with this and it's not easy, but you
Mhm.
can start to make some incremental changes. And it's not about perfection. It's just, making those steps every day to get there.
Definitely.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to have you on. And for the listeners, just watch out for those links. And be sure to check out Miranda on Here Comes the Sunshine and check out what she's doing. All right.
Thanks
Well,
for having me.
yeah, thanks for tuning in today, and I'll see you in the next episode.